They just spent 4 days on the other side of the world doing something that looks exactly like royal work. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. According to multiple sources, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle didn't ask for a single penny from the British taxpayer, not one. And now, the people who said they'd never be welcomed back are suddenly very, very quiet. Let me take you inside what just happened in Australia, because this story has more layers than a royal wedding cake. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex just wrapped up a 4-day tour across Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney. They visited charities, they met with veterans, they talked about mental health and homelessness, causes they've supported for years. And according to reports, the whole thing was privately funded by the organizations that invited them, including the Invictus Games Foundation. That means no palace budget, no official approval, no drama, just work. But here's where it gets interesting. Sources close to the couple claim they are quietly chuffed about how this all played out, and for those who don't speak British slang, chuffed means deeply, genuinely pleased. The question is, why? What exactly did they win? Well, according to royal commentators, this trip accidentally proved something that their lawyers and PR teams have been fighting to establish since 2020. You remember 2020, right? That was the year of Megxit, 6 years ago. Let that sink in. The narrative has been that Harry and Meghan walked away from duty, that they chose Netflix and book deals over service. But here they are, on the ground in Australia, doing engagements that look remarkably similar to the ones they did when they were senior working royals. They just spent 4 days on the other side of the world doing something that looks exactly like royal work. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. According to multiple sources, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle didn't ask for a single penny from the British taxpayer, not one. And now, the people who said they'd never be welcomed back are suddenly very, very quiet. Let me take you inside what just happened in Australia, because this story has more layers than a royal wedding cake. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex just wrapped up a 4-day tour across Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney. They visited charities, they met with veterans, they talked about mental health and homelessness, causes they've supported for years. And according to reports, the whole thing was privately funded by the organizations that invited them, including the Invictus Games Foundation. That means no palace budget, no official approval, no drama, just work. But here's where it gets interesting. Sources close to the couple claim they are quietly chuffed about how this all played out, and for those who don't speak British slang, chuffed means deeply, genuinely pleased. The question is, why? What exactly did they win? Well, according to royal commentators, this trip accidentally proved something that their lawyers and PR teams have been fighting to establish since 2020. You remember 2020, right? That was the year of Megxit, 6 years ago. Let that sink in. The narrative has been that Harry and Meghan walked away from duty, that they chose Netflix and book deals over service. But here they are, on the ground in Australia, doing engagements that look remarkably similar to the ones they did when they were senior working royals. And the local response, according to eyewitnesses, was genuinely warm. No protests, no thrown objects, just people showing up to see them. That alone is a mini payoff for anyone who's followed this saga. But wait, because the real curiosity gap is coming. If Harry and Meghan can successfully pull off privately funded humanitarian tours that look exactly like royal tours, what does that mean for the monarchy's relevance? Think about it. The firm has spent millions over the years on overseas trips that generate headlines for maybe a day or two. The Sussexes just generated a full week of global coverage for zero cost to the Crown. According to media analysts, this trip produced over 3 billion media impressions. 3 billion! That's not just a win for them, that's a masterclass in efficiency that some palace aides are allegedly finding deeply uncomfortable. And here's a personal observation from someone who follows this stuff probably more than is healthy. The double standard is fascinating. When Prince William and Catherine go on tour, it's called diplomacy. When Harry and Meghan do the exact same thing, it's called a publicity stunt. But the numbers don't lie, and the numbers say people are watching. However, and this is a big however, not everyone is celebrating. According to reports, the couple was hammered by some critics who accused them of making money from the appearance. But here's where those arguments fall apart, based on information from sources familiar with the arrangement. The couple didn't charge appearance fees, they didn't film the trip for Netflix, they didn't announce a new book deal tied to the visit. They simply showed up, did the work, and went home. That's not a cash grab, that's service. And frankly, it's hard to criticize someone for helping veterans and homeless charities without sounding like you just hate puppies and sunshine. So that's satisfaction number 2. But now let me open a new loop that literally no one is talking about. According to insiders, this trip might have been a test run, a proof of concept. Because if privately funded humanitarian work can be this successful, why would Harry and Meghan ever need to come back to the royal fold? Why would they accept the restrictions, the endless tabloid scrutiny, the palace protocol, when they can just do this on their own terms? Sources suggest that some fans are now calling for the royal family to actually fund future Sussex trips. I'm serious. The argument goes, if they're doing the work of the monarchy should pay for it. And that right there is the trap. Because if the palace says yes, they look weak for funding people who left. If they say no, they look petty for refusing to support charity work. Either way, according to royal analysts, Harry and Meghan come out looking reasonable. That's not just a victory, that's chess, not checkers. Now, let me address the poll that's been circulating, and I want your honest opinion on this. A major news outlet asked readers, should the royal family fund Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's trips abroad? And, according to early data, the results are apparently not what palace officials were hoping for. A significant portion of the public seems to believe that if the couple is representing British interests abroad, even unofficially, there should be some level of support. But here's where my personal take comes in, and you can agree or disagree. I think both sides are missing the point. Harry and Meghan don't need palace funding. They've proven they can raise their own money for causes they believe in, and the palace doesn't need to fund them either. The real story here isn't about money, it's about legitimacy. By completing this tour without incident, the Sussexes have demonstrated that they don't need royal permission to do royal-style work, and that, more than any Netflix show or memoir, is what actually threatens the traditional royal model. Because let's face it, the monarchy's power has always been about exclusivity, the idea that only certain people with certain titles can perform certain duties. Harry and Meghan just blew a hole in that theory. According to reports, the Duke even made a rare 6-word remark about his father, King Charles, during one of his Australia speeches, and while the exact quote is still circulating, sources say it was surprisingly warm, almost as if the door might not be as completely closed as everyone thought. But then comes the plot twist that nobody saw coming. Some commentators are now suggesting that Meghan Markle was spotted repeating a traditional royal gesture during the tour, something about how she greeted officials or positioned herself during photographs, and according to body language experts who reviewed the footage, it didn't look forced, it didn't look calculated, it looked natural. Which raises an uncomfortable question for the palace. If Meghan looks more comfortable doing royal work now than she did when she was actually a working royal, what does that say about the environment inside the firm? Look, I'm not here to bash anyone. The royal family has endured an incredible amount of pressure over the past decade, but facts are facts. According to multiple sources, Harry mentioned wanting to cleanse myself of my past during one of the Australian events. That's not the statement of someone who wants to come back. That's the statement of someone who has found peace with where they are. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real victory here. Not a PR win, not a media battle, just two people figuring out how to do good in the world without destroying themselves in the process. And honestly, that's something I can respect, regardless of which side of the royal debate you're on. But don't take my word for it. According to the photographers who covered the trip, the couple's true colors showed during unguarded moments. No drama, no tension, just genuine engagement with the people they met. And whether you're a royalist or a Republican, a Sussex fan or a critic, that's hard to argue with. The trip happened, it was successful, and now everyone is asking the same question: what comes next? Sources suggest there are already quiet discussions about similar trips to other Commonwealth nations. Canada has been mentioned, New Zealand, even some African countries where Harry has deep connections through his charity work. And if those trips happen, and if they're equally successful, the palace is going to have a real problem on its hands. Because you can't control what you can't criticize, and you can't criticize charity work without looking terrible. So here's where we are as of today. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just pulled off what many said was impossible. They returned to the international stage, performed royal-style duties, generated massive positive coverage, and cost the British taxpayer absolutely nothing. And they did it all while reportedly being quietly chuffed about the whole thing. That's not just a victory lap, that's a masterclass in soft power. Now, will the royal family ever officially welcome them back? According to most analysts, that's extremely unlikely. Too much has happened, too many books have been written, too many interviews have been given. But here's the thing about doors. Sometimes they don't need to be opened. Sometimes you just build your own. And according to everything we've seen this past week, that's exactly what the Sussexes are doing, one privately funded charity trip at a time. What do you think? Should the royal family fund future Sussex tours, or has this couple officially built a path that doesn't need palace approval? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because honestly, this conversation is just getting started, and I genuinely want to hear where you stand.